I'm not ashamed.
What water did the magicians of Egypt turn into blood? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Exodus on walking through the Bible.
His word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Exodus chapter 7. We're going to be reading from verses 19 to 25. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Exodus chapter 7, beginning at verse 19. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, "Say to Aaron, take your rod and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over the streams, over the rivers, over the ponds, and over all their pools of water, that they may become blood. And there shall be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in buckets of wood and pitchers of stone." And Moses and Aaron did so, just as the Lord commanded. So he lifted up the rod and struck the waters that were in the river in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants. And all the waters that were in the river were turned into blood. The fish that were in the river died, the river stank, and the Egyptians could not drink the water of the river. So there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. Then the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments. And Pharaoh's heart grew hard, and he did not heed them, as the Lord had said. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house. Neither was his heart moved by this. So all the Egyptians dug all around the river for water to drink, because they could not drink the water of the river. And 7 days passed after the Lord had struck the river. In our last episode, we had Moses and Aaron standing before Pharaoh, proclaiming the judgment that the Lord had pronounced on Pharaoh for his disobedience in not letting the children of Israel go. The first plague that was inflicted upon Egypt was that the waters of the Nile were turned into blood. Some contend that what really happened is that the water turned red, as is common in Egypt, because of the red sediment that is brought downstream at certain points of the year. But if this was true, for one, it would not really be a sign that God was working through Moses, because the Nile can turn the color of blood naturally. Pharaoh could have viewed this as a coincidence. Second, the reddening of the Nile would not have killed all the fish. The miracle wasn't that God smote all the fish, but that he turned the water into blood, which in turn killed all the fish. Some Bible believers who take this view say that we really should take the words here in Exodus 7 to be like that of Joel 2:31, which said that the moon would be turned into blood. Joel's prophecy is clearly speaking metaphorically concerning a cataclysmic day, and so the reasoning goes that that is how we should view this miracle too. But one rule of Bible interpretation is that we should only view something as symbolic or metaphorical if the context demands it. Exodus 7 through 12 is dealing with physical plagues. We're going to read of physical hail, physical frogs, physical locusts, and the physical killing of the firstborn son. God is not performing symbolic plagues, but actual plagues. Therefore, if the Bible says that the water was turned into blood, it was turned into blood. Perhaps we could say that because the Nile River can appear red throughout the year, and the people would drink from it, is why God smote the fish and made the river stink in order to prevent them from doing this. But we shouldn't conclude that the water wasn't turned into blood. Pharaoh didn't heed the words of the Lord, so Aaron struck the water with his rod, and not only did the waters of the Nile River turn into blood, but so did their streams, their ponds, and all the pools of water. What's more, the water in all the buckets and stone pitchers became blood too. So as we can see, this wasn't just a local phenomenon, but occurred all throughout Egypt. Whether this included the waters in the section where the children of Israel were, we cannot say with certainty, but it is certainly within God's power to miraculously spare Israel from this plague. When the plague happened, exactly what God had said would happen, happened, for all the fish died and the waters stunk. Pharaoh, though, again called his magicians to see if they could perform the same thing that Moses and Aaron did. The Bible says they did, and this is why Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Two questions arise from what the magicians did. The first question is, where did they get the water that they turned into blood? The clue comes from verse 24, in that the Egyptians dug around the river for clean water to drink. That they found underground water shows us that the Lord was merciful in that he did allow them to find some water, but they had to work hard for it. This would be where the magicians got their water from. Now the second question is, how is it that they turned their water into blood? It would be similar to how they turned their rods into snakes. They could have done so through trickery, either by using water that contained red sediment, so the water looked like the same water that was blood, or by sleight of hand, where they fooled Pharaoh into thinking that the water became blood, when in fact they had switched the clean water for blood water that they got from the Nile. However, another possibility exists in that God allowed them to perform this miracle in order to harden the heart of Pharaoh. Someone who is ready to believe in God wouldn't call magicians in order to see if they could replicate this miracle. They would believe. However, God allowed Pharaoh to disbelieve him, just as he does with people today. Pharaoh disbelieved, so the plagues would continue. This plague, however, appears to last one whole week before God continues on. With that, our time is up for today. Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Exodus chapter 8, verses 1 to 7, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
I'm not ashamed.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.
Of his